Good morning. We're learning as a schus for Shlema Filana Chaya Baserach. We're on Mem Zayin Amud Aleph by the new parak. Ezu Mekayim Min Shel Zevachim. What is the place of the korbanos? Now we've had some hints over the last couple of months. Kachim Shchitasam B'Tzafin. We've seen this, that the Kachim, their shchita is in the north part of the Beis Hamikdash. If you have I think the article has a picture somewhere, but it's essentially what we've talked about is that the Mizbeach is in the middle of the Azara, and there are three shittas about what the tzafin is. One mandamar is that everything on the northern side of the Mizbeach, that means directly to the north, neither in the gap between to the east or the west of the Mizbeach. It's only between the northern side of the Mizbeach and the end of the Azara. Then there's another madam who says it's not just directly opposite to the north of the Mizbeach, but also the area between the Mizbeach and the Ulam or the Heichel, that whole part that's to the north of the Mizbeach, that corner of the Azara is all good. And finally, there's one madam who says, no, everything that's to the north, any part of the Azara that's to the north of the Mizbeach is all considered tzaf. Okay. So, kachim, shchitasam b'tzafim. So what's a kachim is, let's see, I think chatas and a oila and a mincha and an asham. I hope I got everything. So now we're gonna first the Mishnah is going to look at the different types of chatoyos. Par v'sar shel Yom Kippurim. So the Gemara later on is going to explain why we went in this order in subdividing the chatoyos. And now first we start with the chatoyos pnimius, which we know, which we've come across a bunch of times. So that includes the par and the sar of Yom Kippur, as well as and includes also the Seirim HaNesrafim, which is also the Par Kaya Mashiach, Par Halm Dav Shel Tzibur, and I'm leaving out something. Okay, we'll get to them as we get to them. So Par V'Sar Shel Yom Kippurim, Ch'shiritasam B'Tzafa, the Shechita is on the northern side, like we just said. It's all part of Kachim Kachim. Mekibel Dam and B'Kli Sharas B'Tzaf. And you also have to mekabel the dam in a Kli Sharas. That's also in the same place. The Dam and Tan Hazoyal Ben Habadim. After we're finished with the Tzafin discussion, it has other necessities. You first have to go. This is on Yom Kippur. So you go. The Kohen Gadol goes into B'fnai and B'fnim to the Kachim Kachim, and he needs to sprinkle the dam between the poles of the Aron, and he does it if you remember, one upward in an upward motion and 7 in a downward motion. There, and then he goes out of the Kachim Kachim, he goes into the Heichel, and he goes toward the curtain that's between the Kachim Kachim and the Heichel. And then he does on the Mizbeach Hazav on the Arba Kronos. And then he cleans off an area. Al-Tayar, Pashas means he cleans off an area on top of the Mizbeach Hazav, and he puts on there. Matana achas mehen ma'akeves. And as we learned in the previous parak, all of these matanas are ma'akev. Unlike, if you remember, we said about a regular chatas and about other karbanas, that you only need, although you're supposed to do 4 for a chatas, and 2 for an oila and a shlamim, or any other carbon, but only one of those nesinas are ma'akav. But on the par v'sar shel Yom Kippur, all of the hazayas are ma'akav.
Yeah, and on all the other ones, you only need 1, and you yoitzer.
Right. It means it's you yoitzer, right? B'diavad.
Right.
Shiare Adam, the leftover blood, ha'yeshevach al yisoid maravi shel mizbeach, they would pour it on the western Yisoid. That was like a little foundation, a little piece sticking out that went around part of the Mizbeach. Like we said, you have to do the Hazoyas, Keneged HaYisoid, and the Shiari Adam would be poured out onto the Yisoid. So Mizbeach HaChitzon, this is on the outside. For this, you go out of the Heichel, you certainly out of Kachei Kachim, you go to the Mizbeach, the big Mizbeach. Vim loy nasan, loy Yaakov. But if he skipped the Shiurei Adam on the side, that's not Ma'akav the Avodah. It doesn't stop it. It doesn't stop the carbon from being merut. Param hanisrafim v'seirim hanisrafim. The other param that chatois pnimius, which is the param hanisrafim v'seirim hanisrafim, which is, what are those? Rashi says, par helam davar, par koy Mashiach, that is not eaten, but rather gets fully burnt outside of Yerushalayim. And Sirum Hanisrafim, Seir Avodas Kechavim, Shchitasan B'tzafin. It also gets burnt outside of Yerushalayim. Shchitasan B'tzafin. They are shechted on the northern side of the Mizbeach, but Kibul Dam B'Klishas B'tzafin. The same thing like we said on the first group. They have the Kibul Dam has to be B'tzafin, V'dam and Ton Hazi al Aparoiches, but the Hazois Adam is slightly different. There's no Kodesh Kadashim component. You don't spritz anything between the Badim toward the Aron, toward the Kapyrus. But they need ala Paroiches al Mizbeach Hazav. It needs the same toward the curtain in the Heichel, between the Heichel and the Kodesh Kadashim, and on the Mizbeach Hazav. Matana Achas Mehen Ma'akeves. It also has the din that all of the Matanas am Akev. Shiarei Hadam it also had the Shichas Dam on the side of the Shirayim. Again, if he didn't do that, it's not Ma'akav. And both of these are burnt in the place of the Deshen. The place of the Deshen is every day there was a avodah of Trumas HaDeshen. So this, and they would take a shovelful from the Mizbeach and take it outside of Yerushalayim to place it al the Makam HaDeshen, into this special place where they would dump out the Deshen. And in addition, occasionally when the Mizbeach would get too full, they would also clean it off and bring it there. And the third place thing that was used for was for the chatois that were nisrafim. They would also be burnt in the place where they disposed of the Deshen. We said we had three parts of the Mishnah. First, we said Ezu Mekayim Shel Zevachim Kachikachin Shkitasim B'Tzafin. Then we said Parvis Soyer of Yom Kippur, and then we said the Seir Parvis Pirim V'Seirim Hanisrafim. Why in that first introductory sentence, which says Ezu Mekayim Shel Zevachim Kachikachin Shkitasim B'Tzafin? Why are we only talking about the Shchita B'Tzafin? Why don't we also say the Kabbalah's Dam is B'Tzafin? So, since there's another one kachei kachim of Asher Mitzayra, the Kibul Dam may be Yadu Shaira. Since Asher Mitzayra, if you remember this, Asher Mitzayra is the Asher that was brought by Mitzayra when he becomes Tameh with he has a din of Mitzayra. He has to separate and then he has to bring karbanos to get out of his tzaras, so to be able to rejoin. So part of it is there was a kibul dam biyad directly from the animal that would be used to spritz on the mizbeach as well as to put on the matan behind us, the matan yad. So since you have that was accepted with the hand of the kohen instead of going into the kibul, the makabel in a kli sharis, it would go into the hand of the mitzayra. So therefore we couldn't say kachei kachim entirely. That kibul daman is bekli sharis b'tzafin because not all of them are bekli sharis b'tzafin. Correct the mar of Eloi. Does the Asher Mitzayra really only have a kibul dam in the hand of the kohen? Baktani la lekaman. Ashem Nazir, Asher Mitzayra, the Ashem of a Nazir who became Tameh, and the Ashem of a Mitzayra that we were just discussing. Shchitasa b'tzafin, the kibul dam bekli sharis b'tzafin. they have a shchita b'tzafin, and there is a kibul dam and a klisharis. So again, we're just going to remind ourselves, what is this kibul dam that we're talking about? When you shech the carbon, the dam comes directly out of the animal. It goes, and it's the standard is it goes directly into a kli, and that's Kabbalah. The Kabbalah, one of the four avodas hadam. And so it's saying over here that Asher Mitzayra also has a Kabbalah's hadam and a kli sharis. No, Nikara Sava Kibul Dama Biyadu Shair. The beginning of our Mishnah, the reason, since there is a Kibul Dam Biyad for an Asher Mitzayra, therefore it left it off. It's the Mikar Savar is not really exactly on point. It's not that the Mishnah changed its mind. It means that the reason why it was stated this way was to honor the fact that there is a Kibul Dam Biyad by Asher Mitzayra. Since it also needs a Kabbalah B'Kli, it needs both, Hadar Tanaya. That's why we have the Brisa that says that it also has a Kibul Dam and a Kli Sharis. The Tanya.
The bottom line is it
Needs both.
or biyad?
Both. It's always a good answer. The Tanya. The Lakach Yachal B'Kli. Torah says V'Lakach L'Gabe L'Chayim Yidama Asham and also Kan Al Tnuch Oizen Ameter Hayimanis Al Bayin Yada Hayimanis Al Bayin Ragla Hayimanis. Yachal B'Kli. I might think that he takes it B'Kli Tamad Loima V'Nosan. It says V'Nosan HaKayin Al Tnuch Oizen Ma Nesine B'Atzmish Al Kayin. Just like when he places the dam on the different parts of the Mitzayra, it means he places it with his finger. So too, when he takes the dam, it should be with his hand. I might think that also the dam that's going to be put on the mizbeach, right? There's there's shtaim shem arba on the two zrikas dam on the mizbeach. Just so you learn that from the chatas. The Torah compares the asham to the chatas. Just like the chatas, you need a Kabbalah's dam. There's no exception by the chatas that you do a biyad. So the Kabbalah's dam is b'kli. So too with the asham. Turns out that there were two kahanim who would be mekabel the dam of asham mitzayra, echad biyad ve'echad b'kli. So I think it was meant to have to do one after the other. I don't think it was like they're both sticking it under the dam at the same time, but I guess the dam came out for a little bit, and you had enough time to do more than one. The one who's Makabel B'Kli, he would do the Zrikas on the Mizbech. And the ones Makabel B'Yad would do the Nesinas Dam on the hands and on the toe and on the he would do.
So it's either or.
I'm sorry?
It's either or you could do.
No, you have to do both. There was a Kabbalah's dam, Zrikas dam on the Mizbech, as well as he would put on the Eisen and on the Bayin Yadai, Val Bayin Raglai, Ayimanis.
That sounds like it's two different ones, right?
There's two separate Kabbalah's dam, one in the hand of the Kayin and one in a Kli. The one in the Kli was used for Zrikas, and the one that went onto the hand of the Kayin, into his hand, would then go straight to go on the Mitzayra. They would smear the blood on the Mitzayra's thumb and on his toe.
Yeah.
They're just two separate things he had to do.
This is a very specific. It's not a shlom or a regular.
It's the Asher Mitzayra.
Asher Mitzayra, so that's fine.
Yeah. And the pasuk tells you these things, these nesinas. It's directly in the pasuk. Then the Mishnah continued. Par v'sar shel Yom HaKippurim. Right. The first thing that we said in the Mishnah, which the Zrikas Dam, the Shechita was in the Tzafon, was the Par v'sar shel Yom HaKippurim. First we said Kachay Kachay, then we said Par v'sar shel Yom HaKippurim. Mechti. Tzafon ba'eliksiv. This whole din that you have to do a Shechita b'Tzafon comes from the Oila. The Chatas is compared to the Oila. Nisni Oila b'Reisha. We're going to have another Mishnah that's going to talk about the Oila. We're going slowly through all the Kachay Kachim, but we started with the Par v'sar shel Yom Kippurim. Why don't we start with the original source of where everything else is learned from, that it has to be b'Tzafon. It says Tzafon by Oila, and then we say the Chatas is like the Asham, so we learn out the other things. So why don't we say the Oila first? So since we learn it out from a drasha, we have learned it out from chatas. We learn that from Ayla with a drasha, so we want to put it first. Why do we start with the Parvasar Shal Yom Kippur? Why don't we start with the Chatas Chitzanius? We do the more Kaidish one, right? The Parvasar Shal Yom Kippur go into the Kachei Kachim, so that gets precedence. Where does it say that you have to do shchita b'tzafen by an oila? Ashchem ben soin ben baka minalan. That just tells you that pasuk was talking about soin. How do you know that a oila that was brought from a baka? Where do we know that from? Amar kra v'iminat soin vav moisef al inyirishin. It says also when the Torah talks about the tzayin, it says ve'iminat tzayin. Even though it doesn't say tzafon by the tzayin, we use the vav to tell you that it applies just as it applies to the bakar. You need shchita b'tzafon, you also need it on the tzayin. The yilmid elya mitachta.
Right? Pasuk says about tzayin, and we learn out bakar.
Ashkam ben tzayin ben bakar. Right, you're right. I'm sorry. We said it by the tzayin. We don't know about the ben bakar. The pasuk says after it says about the ben bakar, where it doesn't mention tzafon, it says about the tzayin. It does say with tzafon, and then it says vav ma'aseh al yishim v'yilmi al mitachtan. Since we have a vav, it tells you we should learn the bakar, which came first, from the tzayin, which comes after, which mentions tzafon. That's good according to the Mandam, who says that you do Yilmid El Yamitach. We can learn the first thing from the second thing, right? The normal way, if you think about it, if you wanted to teach something, you would say this is the rule for item A and also for item B. Now it says this is the rule. It doesn't say any rule. It says this is item A and item B, and second item all has this halacha. And we're saying now, the vav tells you it goes on the first thing. Normally you do it the other way around. So to machlekes whether that works. That you can't learn out something that was previously stated from the vav. The Tanya, where do we see that we don't learn? Where do we see this klal that we don't learn out el yamitach? The Tanya, bim nefesh. The pasuk says, bim nefesh kisechta v'asa achsim komitz Hashem shalois yasendavol yada v'ashem v'nasa avayne. You remember this? This is Asham Tali. This is if someone is not sure if he was over on something, if he's over on, we're going to see which type of Averis, but if he's unsure whether he actually was over, the Torah prescribes an Asham Tali. He brings a special Asham, someone who's like the classic case is, he ate one of two pieces of meat, and he doesn't know. He knows that one of them was chaylev, one of them was treif, and he doesn't know if he ate the one that was actually chaylev. So Torah says v'im nefesh chayav al safek mi'ilas asam tali. That after the pasuk of after the Torah said the din of asham. Now an asham, not a asham mi'ilas, is someone who was a nana from kachim. So first the Torah says if someone is nana from kachim, he has to bring an asham mi'ilah. Then the Torah says v'im nefesh. It says the din of the asham tali, that if someone, again you have to listen carefully. The asham tali is not for a possible chi of asham necessarily. Asham tali is for being over on. We're going to see what it's over on, but Pashas it's talking about chatas. If you're over on a chatas, right, the classic case is chayla. But these two things are together: the asham mi'ilas and the asham tali. L'chayiv al safek mi'ilas asham tali. That's coming to tell you. The Torah says ve'im, that it puts together the asham tali with the asham mi'ilas to tell you that if someone was over misafek on mi'ilah, that he also has the din of a asham tali. Divrei Rabbi Kiva. That's Rabbi Kiva's shita. The Chum and Poitrim. The Chum say no. The din of Asham Tali only applies, as we're going to see, to a Chatas, not to a. We'll see exactly what it is, but not to an Asham. If he was Mesupik, if he was ever on Me'ilas, on something that if he's Suffolk, if he was Ma'ir. Ma'ilab Hakam Iflagi, Marsav Lamedin or Marsav Ein Lamedim. The Chachamim, the Rabbanan who said that you don't say Asham Me'ilas applies to someone who was over on Me'ilah, they hold that the Vav does not tell you can learn El Yamitach, and you don't learn out the first pasuk of Me'ilah from the second pasuk of Asham Tali. Rabbi Kiva holds you don't, and Rabbi Kiva says you do. Amar Papa Dekulia Amal Lamedim. Rabbi Papa says no. Everyone agrees you do learn out Asham. You do learn Me'ilah from Asham Tali, and it would apply. Behind the time of the Rabbanan. So why talk to the Rabbanan say that someone who's Ma'il does not bring an Asham Tali? If he's Ma'il B'Safik, he doesn't bring an Asham Tali. It says by the Asham Tali, it says mitzvahs. No? And it says by the standard chatas for someone who a person who was over who brought has to bring chatas for being over in a lav. It says it uses the word mitzvahs. The Rabbanan say we learn out from the Gzeirah Shava that tells you it only applies to chatas and not to anything else. You're only going to have a asham tali if you're not sure if you are over on a chatas. Rebbe Kiva. I'm just going to remind you again. You know, it always got confusing to me. The asham tali is brought to someone who's not certain afterwards if he was over on a chatas. It's not someone who did it b'shaygig, like he ate chatas, he ate chaylev, and he didn't know at the time he was eating chaylev. That would not be. That would be a regular chatas. It's somebody. It's somebody who after he ate still does not know if for sure he ate from the chaylev. So in any case, the Rabbanan say the asham tali is limited to just chatas because we learn after the Gzeirah Shava. Rabbi Kiva Ma'ala Lon, Rabbi Kiva says no. The Gzeirah Shava is only excluding something else. Ma'ala Lon bekvua, afkam bekvua. The pasuk says chatas. It has to be alzdana kartz ashigas chatas, but it's not. Doesn't mean to exclude the asham me'ilah from being a asham tali. It's coming to tell you it has to be something bekvua. La'afuge chatas the tumas mikdash ukdoshav. If you remember, right, our din of Oila v'Yared, we started a Masechta. I wish I could remember which Masechta it was. My memory is for these kind of details is terrible.
Nazir?
Was it Nazir? Luzi, you remember? Which Masechta started with that? What?
No, there was the little Masechta.
Hyrius?
Hyrius. No?
Hyrius? I don't think so.
Isn't that Tyrese? No.
Was it Shavuos?
Which one?
It
There
was-
was
I don't know. I have to go sit down with the Shas and go through the things. But anyway, we all remember the Masechta that one of the things that's mechuyev you in a carbon oil of a carbon that changes depending on how much money
yes, you're right. It is Shavuos.
Yeah. Lafuki afkam bekvua lafuki chatas the tumas mikdash dash of the oil of a. If someone became tamei and he went into the mikdash, that he brings a carbon oil of a yerid, they're excluded. If he's not sure if he did that, he's excluded from the oil of a yerid. If you remember, this was actually, I think, in one of the first blot, talking about in Shavuos, talking about the carbon oil of a yerid. So that's what Rabbi Kiva says. The Gzeirah Shava is being mitzi, but it's not being mitzi Asham Me'ilas. It's not limiting it just to a chatas. It's coming to exclude the chatas of that's of carbon oil. For Rabbanon, the Rabbanon, why don't they agree with Rabbi Akiva? Ein gzeira shava lemechza. They say it doesn't mean if there's a gzeira shava, it's not coming to exclude oil v'yared. It's a gzeira shava to tell you chatas. It means all chatayis. It's not. It's coming to exclude something else. What it's coming to exclude the meila, not the carbon oil v'yared, the chatas oil v'yared. So the Gemara Akiva nami ein gzeira shava lemechza. The Gemara objects, the Rabbi Akiva would also be masking to this. So this edifice that you constructed doesn't make sense. You can't really say that it's coming to exclude the chatas of oil v'yared, and therefore it should be coming to exclude the asham meila. Zakta mara eina chanami. Yeah, I have to concede you're right. We have to come with a different source. Rabbi Akiva Sava Nefesh Ksiv. The pasuk says, "Nefesh kisechta v'asha achmi chamitzas Hashem ashalois," which is what we said before. Vav Ma'asef al inyan rishon. We use the Vav Ma'asef al inyan rishon. So Rabbi Akiva will say it's coming to tell you, like we said before, that not just it's Asham Me'ilas also is going to have the din of Asham Tali. If one is over b'shaygig, it's the din of Asham Tali. Rabbanan namik v'aksevim nefesh. Well, why don't the Rabbanan agree with this? The Marsava Hekesh Adif, Umarsava Gzeira Shava Adif, because they have a conflict. You have the Gzeira Shava, which you said can't be lemechza. So the Gzeira Shava is telling you only chatas and not asham me'ilas, and then you have the hekesh, which is telling you that there should be a din of asham tali on asham me'ilas. So which one do you listen to? So according to I keep who is who. So Rabbi Kiva, who says l'chayav al savak milas asham tali, he'll say that the hekesh is adif, that the vav moisef al inyan rishon is adif, and we're going to learn out asham milas from asham tali. Umarsav and the Rabbanan who disagree, gzeira shava adif. They're going to go that the gzeira shava tells you it's on a chatas and it's going to exclude the asham milas. So they're going to lie. The kuli alma the hekesh adif. That is not correct. Everyone will agree that the hekesh takes precedence, and therefore you really should learn. You should learn out asham milas from that asham tali should apply to asham milas. Amalach Rabbanan tachtan hu degam malian. But the Rabbanan say even though there's a hekesh, the hekesh is going the other direction. We're not learning out el yami tachtan. We're not learning out to say to apply asham tali to asham milas, but rather we're going to apply the din of asham milas to asham tali. La asham bekasav shkalim. It's coming to tell you that you have to have that the value of the asham tali has to be 2 shkalim. Shaloi taimau, because there's a din by asham, which is an unusual din that only applies to asham, that there's a minimum value of how much the asham has to be worth. It has to be 2 shkalim. Shaloi taimau, lo yehei sveikei cham mivadei, because you shouldn't say that the suffix, the asham tali, should be more chama than the vadei. Meaning, when one brings a asham tali, you bring it for being over on a chatas. Now, the chatas does not have this din that it has to be worth 2 shkalim. So one might say, listen, you're being mechoyev asham tali because you might have been over on a chatas, but if you had been over for sure, you'd bring a chatas which could have been worth ma vadei chatas bas danka. You could bring a carbon that was worth a very small amount, a minimal amount. Asveikai asham bar danka. Maybe asham tali should also be only a minimal amount, meaning any amount. So that's why we have to have the vav moisef al inyan rishon, the hekesh, to tell you we learn out the asham tali from the asham me'ilas. Asham me'ilas, the Torah says it has to be shnei shkalim. The asham tali as well has to be 2 shkalim. So people will have an incentive They're going to try to find out if they were over, and they could save themselves some money. They don't have to bring the 2 shekel carbon. They could bring a nickel carbon. Rabbi Kiva, high svara minale. Taka Rabbi Kiva, how's he going to know this? That the Asham Tali also has a minimum of 2 shkalim. Nafkele mizayis teres Asham. He learns it out from Zayis teres Asham. Achas l'chol ha'ashamas. The Torah says Zayis teres Asham that all the Ashamas have the same din, and the Asham Tali is not excluded. Not everyone agrees to this drasha of Torah that tells you that everything by an Asham has the same, that you can learn from Torah's Zois Torah's Asham, whether that tells you that everything is that a lima to tell you everything is the same. So Gemara Goma be'erkcha be'erkcha. We learn it out from Gzeir Shava. It says be'erkcha behevi ayel tamim and atzayin be'erkcha la'asham. Alakai v'chibel lavakai l'shigatzer shirago l'yadav v'nislach. Ligabi a asham of erichin, I guess, that, and it says nefesh kisimol mal v'chata b'shkaga mikache Hashem behavius Hashem el Hashem ayel tam and atzayin. That's the asham eilos. So tomorrow teinech heicha diksiv be'erkcha asham ishach harufa deloitziv be'erkcha ma'yikal ameima. What about? So that will tell you that this din of Beis Shkalim will apply to the Erkacha. It will learn it out from the Asham Eilis, where it says, I think that's where it says Shnei Shkalim. But what about the Asham of a Shivcha Charufa, that the Torah doesn't have Be'erka? If you're not learning Torahs, how are you going to learn out that the Asham of a Shivcha Charufa, someone's born a Shivcha that was what was it? I forgot the case of Asham Shivcha Charufa, that she was married to an Eved, and he was born her, so it belonged to someone else. That it does anyway. There's a special Asham for that. How do you know that also has the din? It has to be a minimum of 6 kalim. Gomer ba'ayil ba'ayil. We have a separate Gzeir Shava for that. Okay. It says the word ayil by Shivcha Charufa as well as by Asham Eilis. What time is it? Okay, we're going to leave Chatas for tomorrow. This is a little bit complicated. It's not really complicated, just a lot of psukim that are not clear. The problem with Kachim is that the psukim don't tell you what they're talking about. They all sound the same, and you don't know. You know what I mean? We'll say